Now to our focus of the day. Now, while manufacturing is a historically slow-moving and conservative industry, COVID-19 has created new challenges that are requiring manufacturers to innovate at speeds they never have before. Supply chain disruptions, social distancing, on high-touch assembly lines, limited ability to travel, and the need for oversight add significant complexities to today's processes. Widespread globalization means nearly every supply chain is impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Building and maintaining relationships with suppliers, solving complex engineering problems, and understanding the visceral challenges of why something is difficult to assemble or rely on in-person interactions. Restricted movement of people around the globe has necessitated a new way to develop products remotely. The problems caused by COVID-19 will not go away overnight. As the manufacturing industry rises to the occasion, there is going to be a fast adoption of innovative technologies at a very large scale as the only choice available. I have joining me now via Skype from Abuja for more on this discussion. He is the president of the Manufaturers Association of Nigeria, Engineer Mansour Ahmed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start this way. Like I said in my introduction, the effect of COVID-19. It's felt across board. Now let's bring it down to the manufacturing sector, which is in focus today. How has it affected the sector in totality?
Yes, well, thank you very much. Indeed, as you said, the manufacturing sector has been affected virtually from all directions. First of all, you've talked about supply chain disruptions, which obviously have direct impact on current production and production costs. But also, as you know, with the significant fall in oil price, and of course the rise in foreign exchange, there's also huge additional cost to manufacturers, particularly those who are dependent on imported inputs, raw materials, as well as spare parts and so on. But again, you have problems with the purchasing power. Over the last 4 months, as you know, a large number of people have either lost their jobs or significantly lost their basic income, and that has meant much less money in people's hands. So demand itself has, apart from, of course, the rising costs in all inputs, including logistics inputs, as you have said. So these have hit manufacturers very hard. In addition, of course, the need to deal with the basic issue itself of the health of our employees. The lockdown has kept most manufacturers shut down for most of the last 3 months. Even those who have been operating at much lower capacities than you should. So clearly, the situation is dire, and I think this has been shown in our last quarter indices, which has shown significant reduction in manufacturing capacity, in output, as well as indeed in employment levels. So clearly, the manufacturing sector is in very difficult situation right now.
I totally agree with you when we talk about supply disruption. Now, many say this is a time to look inwards and, of course, encourage local content. Backward integration is that word. We've been talking about this for some time. How do you see manufacturers moving to this direction?
Yes, indeed. And this has been an issue that we have discussed with the government. We have discussed extensively with the CBN. Clearly, this is something that on many occasions in the past we have talked about backward integration, but with very little real support for it. As you know, backward integration means significant investment by manufacturers. And for that to happen, there must be supporting environment. There must be significant support by government, both in terms of financing arrangement, as well as indeed in terms of regulatory arrangements. And unfortunately, this has not always happened, even though we have all said, yes, we want backward integration. But I think now there is a real determination. The CBN, as you are aware, has promised an investment of over ₦1 trillion towards manufacturing sector. A lot of it, I think, will go into supporting manufacturers to go into backward integration. Of course, the second part of backward integration is the need for manufacturers themselves to really become more innovative in looking at how quickly they can convert into the use of local inputs and so on and so forth. So yes, backward integration is a major issue, but also I believe that apart from backward integration, the development of the value chain itself, I think there must be greater integration between manufacturers and particularly between the sector and, say, the agricultural sector, so that, for instance, our food and beverages producers should rely more and more on local products. Now, again, this requires huge investment, and I believe that this is something that government has to step up to support the manufacturing sector. Also, I think the financial sector must be more realistic in terms of cost of finance. Clearly, huge investments, long-term investments cannot be supported on the basis of current lending rates. So again, all around, there must be a concerted effort by the private sector, by manufacturers, by the financial sector, and by government to try and really this time around double up on the development of local raw materials as well as local content in all industrial activities.
Now, before, I also remember that just last week we've seen the central bank trying to unify the exchange rate. The IMF, the World Bank has continually talked about this, saying that we need to have a specific amount when it comes to exchange rates and not just having different rates for different purposes. Now that this has happened, this has generated comments from all and sundry. Some say it's positive, some say it's negative. From your end, what's the reaction to this development?
Well, the manufacturing sector has always supported the need for a unified exchange rate, which is stable, which enables investors and manufacturers to plan their foreign exchange needs, and also, of course, also to ensure that there are no distortions in the market. Because I believe that in the long run, it will cost more, but I think if we have stability in the foreign exchange rate, if we have some level of certainty, we can plan better. We can then, of course, also work towards ensuring that we rely less and less on imported inputs, and therefore less and less on foreign exchange from the CBN and so on. But also, I think it will encourage export. And many of our members are now looking towards export as a means of hyping up the foreign exchange, and especially in the light of the oncoming African Continental Free Trade Agreement, the need to expand export is becoming even more urgent. And I believe that this will, to a large extent, help manufacturers and other exporters to boost exports significantly and to avoid the distortions that comes with the multiple exchange rates.
Very interesting. But President, let's remember that land borders remain short. What effect does this have on your members, particularly because many have said that this border closure has had its positives and its negatives? But for manufacturers, what side or which side of the table do you stand?
Well, first of all, many of our members who have been exporting obviously have been hit rather badly. And indeed, particularly in the last 6 months, first, there's the border closure, which cut off export possibilities. And then, of course, the COVID, which again cut off productive capacity. So yes, those manufacturers that are indeed exporting have not found it easy and definitely have not been happy. However, I think there are others that are dependent on other inputs, for instance, particularly in the agricultural sector or agri-processing sector, that have benefited tremendously from the border closure that has significantly reduced smuggling and other malpractices, trade malpractices that have been very, very severely impactful on those subsectors. So, if you like, it's a sort of variable impact. Some were happy, some were not so happy.
Okay, Mr. President, let's now look at other challenges being faced by manufacturers at this time. We know there was a time we are still moving towards industrializing our economy, and with COVID-19 and all of these challenges we face at this time, how soon are we getting there? What other challenges do you really want government to look at to making it more easier for you? Because we need to make sure that we produce and manufacture what we consume in this country.
You know, the government has set up this economic sustainable growth, economic sustainability plan,
yes,
which we welcome very much. And that sustainability plan actually focuses very strongly on reindustrialization, because of course we are having to now look at those industries that have largely, due to poor policy stance, that have gone out of business, in like the textiles and the leather industries and so on. I think these now have an opportunity to come back. So clearly, in a way, COVID has woken us up and opened our eyes to the need to reindustrialize. And I'm happy that with the economic sustainability plan, I think government is taking some very serious steps to support investors and manufacturers to restore industrial structure. Definitely, there are some basic industries that are absolutely essential, especially industries that are employment-generating industries, like the textiles industry, like the leather industry, the construction industry, housing, and so on. And I believe that these are areas in which government is definitely taking steps under the economic sustainability plan to boost. I believe that the expected investment of over 2.3 trillion naira over the next year or two will certainly make a huge difference in our industrial structure. But I think it is important. I think I must highlight here that one of the key problems with the government planning and policy making is delivery, implementation, if you like, but more especially delivery. If we are able to deliver all the things that we promised to deliver, if we are able to provide low-cost financing for investors, and an environment, a regulatory environment that enables manufacturers to plan and to execute the plans without disruption, I believe that we have a tremendous opportunity going forward to restore our industrial health and to boost the manufacturing capacity so that it can indeed make the right level of contribution to our economic growth that it should make. Our manufacturing sector is currently contributing less than 10% of the GDP. I think for our economy, given the size of our economy, given our resources and resource base and our capacity, especially in terms of our population, I think the manufacturing sector should be targeting between 20 and 25% of making 20 and 25% of economic of the GDP.
Okay, let's end this interview on this note. You touched on the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and a lot of policy issues that government has also embarked on to try to strengthen or to, get more earnings and improve the GDP contribution of the manufacturing sector. Now that COVID has come, I see that some of this might not be as fast as we see it. How does it come to you?
Yes, well, indeed, earlier on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement was going to kick off in July, 1st of July. But of course, because of COVID, this now has to be postponed until the first quarter of 2021. So clearly it has had an effect. But in a way, I think it has also given us time to really think through, our strategy for trade. President Buhari, when he received the report of the committee that looked at the possibility of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, did say that we need to develop a very sound, robust production agenda, particularly a manufacturing production agenda, if indeed we are going to benefit from trade. I believe that this delay, and of course, even the impact of COVID itself, has clearly drawn our attention to the need, to the validity of that statement by President Buhari. And I expect, and indeed we have been discussing this with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, and indeed with other government agencies and CBN, that this is an opportunity for us to really do something about boosting our manufacturing capacity to be ready for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Mr. President, that's the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Engineer Mansour Mohammed. Thank you very much for your time.